Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the session. If you look around, you see there are many people behind you. For those who are sitting in the front, that means that this is a very well-attended session. And thank you very much for taking the time to come to this session. As our MC has mentioned, this afternoon we will have a very interesting and international program. We will have speakers from different countries, different parts of the world, as well as different professions. You'll come across speakers talking about technology, health services, rehabilitation, language. All these will be interesting and aligned very well with the theme of today. Let me first give you a quick introduction of each of our speakers. And then when they come up to talk, I will introduce them further. As noted in your program, we have altogether 4 speakers. The rundown of it is each of the speakers will speak for about 20 minutes. By the end, we'll have a discussion session so that we'll all sit down and have some discussion. And by that time, we'll welcome questions from the floor. Let me first introduce to you the speakers' names. Dr. Francis Mark. Dr. Mark. He's Chief of Service, Department of Medicine and Geriatric, Tuen Hospital, Cluster Coordinator, Medicine and Geriatrics of the New Territory West Cluster of the Hospital Authority. And we have Professor Takashi Iba, all the way from Japan. Professor Iba is Associate Professor of Faculty of Policy Management and Graduate School of Media and Governance of Keio University in Japan. We have Professor Goldie Nejat. She's AGE-WELL Robotics Research Project Lead and Network Investigator. She's also Canada Research Chair in Robots for Society and Associate Professor of University of Toronto in Canada. And we have Mr. Peter Poon Keung, who is Deputy CEO, Community Rehabilitation Network of the Hong Kong Society for Rehabilitation. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Mark. Hopefully the slide for Dr. Mark's presentation will come up soon. Dr. Mark, as I introduced to you, is with the Hospital Authority. His specialties is really in the geriatrics as well as health administration. He has numerous experience from different parts of the world, got qualification from different parts of the world. And currently, as I mentioned, his focus is on geriatric medicine. At the same time, he's also the chairman of the Geriatric Subcommittee of the Hong Kong Hospital Authority, overseeing geriatric service provision to the public in Hong Kong. And his main interest is in clinical geriatrics and healthcare planning for older people. As far as I know, Dr. Mark is going to present to you some of the new initiatives related to using technology, serving older patients in Hong Kong. And Dr. Mark, the podium is yours.
So good afternoon, and thanks, Professor Lai, for your kind introduction. I thank the organizing committee for this kind invitation. It is really, I have been attending the conference and also looking around for 2 days, and it is a mind-opening experience for me. I am a clinician working in hospital authority, so my world is very small in a sense. We focus on really ill patients. But I think this group of patients, or this group of people, is very important because they represent the most needy elderly patients in our society. So I will give you an overview of what's happening in Hong Kong and also in hospital authority as a background for our sharing this afternoon. Now, people call this a tsunami. The aging population is expanding because of the scale and also the rapid pace. Therefore, it is a tsunami. And we need to face a big challenge. And Hong Kong is catching up very quickly. And also, from the information by various speakers, Hong Kong will become one of the cities with the most rapid increasing elderly population in the world. It's all because we have very long longevity. We are now #1 in the world, right? Beating most of the South Asian cities. We have the longest longevity for both men and women. That is good for we people, right? But it is a challenge for the healthcare system. And it is particularly important for hospital authority because HA in Hong Kong serves the majority public health for our population. And especially it's about the emergency service, the inpatient service and rehabilitation service. And you see these are the most sick and also most frail people of the older population. And we all know when one gets old, we get more illnesses. And the higher the age one has, the more illnesses that one may have. And this implies that the use of health services, clinical services, will be increasing. And it is exponentially increasing. Give you a rough idea. When we need to provide 1 bed for an adult population, then we need to provide 4 beds for our elderly patients, just for number, right? For the hospitalization episode. But however, because older people will live or need to stay in hospital for a longer period of time, so if we really want to provide an adequate service, then 1 bed for an adult patient will require 9 beds for our elderly people. Now you can see that because of the expanding elderly population, we cannot provide enough beds to meet this demand. Now the experience of building 1 hospital is 10 years. So we need 10 years to build 1 hospital. And then we can't wait for 10 years to serve our rapidly growing elderly people and their clinical need. Unless we think about alternative ways or better ways to give our clinical service. Now, what are the characteristics of our elderly patients? Now, I usually put our elderly patient akin to the younger kids, right? Geriatrics is very like pediatrics. When you treat a child, you treat the family, right? So when you treat an elderly patient, we also treat the family. But the family is different. The family can be another elderly, can be a maid, or can be no family, actually, no family members. So the challenge is much bigger for us, actually. Now, elderly patients have more illnesses, as I mentioned, and they respond to treatment slowly. And it's not as rapid as adult patients. Another thing is we have a lot of dementia patients in the elderly population. Now, in 10 to 20 years' time, we may have up to 300,000 dementia patients, and most of these are elderly patients. And they respond to treatment more slowly and more difficult, in a sense, to get the adequate response. We usually say that when we treat our elderly patient, we don't need very high-tech stuff for the diagnosis or assessment, but we need a high touch because we need to care about the environment, the caring system, and the stage of the caregivers. And also because of all this, we try to avoid unnecessary hospitalization for elderly patients. Now, it's well known, proven in the medical literature that elderly patients, when they go into hospital, of course, they get the appropriate treatment, but there are a lot of risks associated with them, especially if it is dementia patients, where they will be restrained, there will be higher chance of falls, developing pressure sores, etc. So we are thinking a way that how we can manage all these patients' clinical need without the necessary or unnecessary hospitalization. That is one of the important strategies that we need to go for. Now, because of the expanding elderly population and the many more patients with such illnesses, the strategy adopted by HA is to stratify the patient's need. Now, we need to focus our resources to the top triangle, right? Because these are really sick patients, and they're elderly, and they need the hospital care or multidisciplinary care. Now, however, we need to have a very robust tool to screen out this or triage these patients when they come into our contact. Otherwise, because of so many people there, we don't know how to distribute the resources. So we need to have an important tool to make out the distinction. And this is where gerontology or IT can help us. I will elaborate on that with some examples later. Now, in our cluster, we have been discussing our service plan for the coming 5 to 10 years in NTWC, that is Tuen and Wing-leung area. And I think these principles actually should be the strategies that we adopt to provide clinical service for the whole population of Hong Kong. Now, the first one is elder-centered. That means all our clinical services, all our structures, including hospitals, clinics, they should geared for the major users, and the major users are elderly people, right? When a young adults get into such a setting, they won't have problem, but not vice versa. So all the places should be designed or redesigned to suit our elderly patients. And this, again, the Gerontology initiative, right, that has put outside, right, can be integrated into our design. The second thing is about accessibility. Transportation for elderly patients, especially ill patients, is very difficult. So we need to provide clinical service very near to the patient's residence. And the best, actually, is to provide the service at their site of residence. Take, for example, homes or OH homes. And this is one of the strategies that we will employ to solve the problem. And then with this type of direction, then we need to develop very good community services to provide the clinical need, to meet the clinical need of the patients living in the community. And then that will come to the very important direction that has been talked all along for years, but we still need to see how it can be implemented well, is the medical-social collaboration. And I think IT development, Geriatric development will also facilitate this combination. Now, I will illustrate with some examples. Now, actually, talking about community services, HA has been developing this for many years. Now, it is up already 20-odd years that we developed this so-called CGAS service. It's Community Geriatric Assessment Service to all the OH homes in Hong Kong. Now, up till now, actually, over 90% of the OH homes, we have a specialist medical team, including doctors, nurses, and allied health colleagues. They will go to the OH home and then provide outpatient clinic there. That means those living in the OH home need not go to the OPD for the consultation, right? And we have that further expanded throughout these years. And now it's over 90% of our OH homes will be covered by this service. Now, this is very good because, take for example, in the SARS epidemic more than a decade ago, these patients need not get into the dangerous environment of a hospital when they come for consultation, right? And they still have adequate medical and clinical services provided at their OH homes with the medication given there. Now, we have a golden chance recently, especially in Tuen area, because there's a donation of a piece of land, and then there will be a mega OH home built there. The size of this mega OH home is 1,400 beds. Now, this is akin to Tuen Hospital, because Tuen Hospital is only 1,800 beds. You see? So we will have a similar hospital-like building, right, next to Tuen Hospital. Namdae is very near to Tuen Hospital. And we thought that is a golden chance for us to develop new initiatives, how to make one more step forward to provide a community service there. Now, you see, we need to a lot of IT connection between this mega OH home and the setting in Tuen Hospital. And we are also planning to build a sick bay at the OH home. This is 45 beds. In our proposal, we thought that with the provision of this, and then there's a regular medical team going to the OH home every day. Many of the sick patients living in the OH home can be cared there, right? And they will receive a clinical service not inferior to a hospitalization. But there will be a lot of benefit with that because actually the patients need not go to the hospital, right? They will remain in the same complex, served by the same people that he or she is familiar with. And this is one step further for our perspective because initially for CGAS, we put our OPD service in the OH home. Now, we put a ward, a medical ward in the OH home. Now, of course, this is a new concept. Now, we are striving for that, but we also need the acceptance and the collaboration by the social sectors, right? We are now putting something medical in a social setting, actually. Something very medical, actually. It's an inpatient care. But I think we are going towards that direction. And secondly, I think you have known that this program has been started early this year. It's a community dementia program. Now, the essence of the program is that HA will provide nursing support, specialist support to the elderly centers in the districts and help the staff there to care for dementia patients, mild to moderate dementia patients in the community, right? They need to come to the hospital, they need not come to the clinic, but they have adequate service, education be delivered at the daycare center. Again, I think this is a breakthrough for the social sectors because usually they deal with social issues. Now, they also deal with health issues. We know that they need support, so we will have also direct specialist support to these areas through our nursing. Now, the main aim is to empower everyone, not just the patients, the caregivers, but also empower our social colleagues, social welfare colleagues, so that they have the skill, the knowledge. We will hope that we can transfer that to them so that they can look after a sicker part or sicker portion of community living elders. And we do hope that with the success of this pilot program, then we are not just dealing with dementia. We can deal with other health issues. That is a real step of medical-social collaboration. And again, because of this community type of service delivered at the community level, then we will need a lot of IT support and also a lot of technological support to make these patients safe living in the community. Now, talking about how to apply IT development in health services or medical services. Now, telemedicine has been talked along for many years, but it's still not very well developed in Hong Kong. I think one of the reasons is because Hong Kong is very small, right? We don't have a distance problem, actually. We have clinics, even hospitals very nearby, just like a convenience shop, right? Because we are so small in area. But however, for elderly patients, it's a bit different, right? Although the clinics is near, but they still have accessibility difficulties because of the various limitation in the inability. So therefore, telemedicine can be a good way to connect the consultation and the patient. And then take, for example, in the Namday project, the Mega OH Home project, I think we will need to employ telemedicine practice so as to facilitate the caring. And for HA, we have done a lot to empower our citizens. Now, this is the HA website, and we have a very smart elderly website, right, particularly geared for our older population in Hong Kong. And we are regularly updating the format and also the information, and hopefully it can be interactive later even, right? Now, talking about this IT development and also big data, this has been talked along for these few years. Now, this is a very interesting article that attracted my eyes. It's called the Electronic Frailty Index. It is published in a UK article. It's an UK article. Why is it important? It captures 36 deficits, right, contained in the so-called index. Now, these 36 deficits actually are captured automatically from the NHS, the National Health Service. So when the UK people went to the clinic, they will have various measurements and they have various diagnoses. And this will be automatically kept in a computer, sent to the cloud with some analysis, and they will bring out an index. And this index is important because this index really measures the frailty of the patient. And then you can see that it matches with the mortality and morbidity. This is one of the ways how the big data concept can be employed to facilitate clinical service. Now in Hong Kong, in the hospital authority, we have a very, I must say it's a very versatile computer system. We have the clinical management system. Now, we have millions of transactions every day. Tons of information fed into this system every day when our patients come to our clinic, our hospitals. So I suppose majority of Hong Kong citizens will have their information put into this system. It is a very big data there. But how can we use this data to facilitate our clinical management? Now, one of these is this table. This is a metabolic risk assessment table. It helps the clinician to recognize the risk factors for our patients automatically, right? We need not trace the various sources. When the patients come to our clinic during our consultation, this will pop out. And then we will know the important risk factors. Now, this is one of the ways to use the big data. Another way is what we call the HARP score. We have developed that for many years in HA. It is geared for our elderly population, our elderly patients. So this now is similar to the FLT index, but it only draws 14 pieces of information. The use of it is to predict whether the patient will be readmitted after this episode, readmitted to hospital 1 month later, within 1 month. Now, this is an important index because for those frequent readmission cases, they are high-risk elderly patients, and we need to provide extra service to them. Now, this is one of the tools that I've mentioned. Right? It helps us to triage our patient right at the point of admission. Right? And also, it helps us when upon discharge, this HARP score will be generated again because there was one additional information given during that admission episode. And then upon discharge, this index will also help us to see what kind of discharge planning that we should have. Take, for example, we have the call center, we have the outreach service to the patient's home to support the patient. All this is initially planned for preventing readmission. But however, you can see that this is a very good tool, or is a very good direction for us to triage our patient at the beginning, automatically, right? That is very important, automatically. That will reduce the clinician's time, the nursing time for unnecessary or avoidable things that need not be done to the patient, and focus on those who are needed. And all this will facilitate our care management in hospital and after discharge, supporting them in the community. And I hope that I have shared to you what's the current things that we are doing. Now, these are really occurring now in Hong Kong, right? Because when we talk about IT and all those innovations, we thought that it can be 1 decade or 2 decades afterwards. Now, these are happening now in Hong Kong, led by hospital authority. Now, what we need is not very high-tech things. All the equipments, technology are already available. But the important thing is we need to have good clinical leadership. Another thing is we need to develop good clinical models of clinical care. Because when we talk about clinical models, we need to prove that it is efficient because it is usually costly. And then we need to have a lot of medical-social collaboration. And we are talking about re-engineering of our manpower. And especially we need to include our social welfare colleagues into our team, right? They also need to be re-engineered in a sense. They have the skill and also the knowledge for some sort of healthcare. Now, all our aim actually is to help our elderly patients living comfortably, safely, and healthily in our community and society. Now, just like what Dr. Lam of the Elderly Commission have mentioned yesterday, he hoped that the medical team or the medical professionals can have dating with the social welfare colleagues. And actually, I urge them to fall in love, actually, and if possible, form a family. And only with that, then we will have real medical-social collaboration, and then that will have a real practice, real change on the practice of the caring of our elderly patients in the community. So this is the end of my sharing, and thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mark, for his presentation. Very interesting. Now you know that in Hong Kong, the challenges that we're faced with, sometimes the size of the population create the needs, but at the same time, the size of the population also creates opportunities for us to look at new things to deal with the mega population. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our next speaker, who is Professor Takashi Iba. As I introduced him earlier about his affiliation with the Keio University in Japan, I also want to mention that is his expertise. He himself is the president of Creative Strip Lab, Inc., and a board member of Hillside Group. collaborating with his student, Professor Ibe, create many pattern languages concerning human action, like learning patterns. So he has numerous publications related to that. I know that Professor Ibe has a new book coming up as well. The title of his presentation is going to be Words for a Journey, Pattern Language for Living Well with Dementia. And without further ado, I'll invite Professor Ibe to come up to the podium. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Takashi Ibe from Keio University. And today I talk about what we are going to do, we are doing as a research, but in the practice in Japan. Okay, so my profession is, my profession is studying the methodology to support people to enhance the quality of life with their daily creativity. So I published a book about learning, presentation, collaboration as a teamwork, or social change making, and the surviving earthquake, and project design for the business scene, and living well with dementia. So today I focus on the living well dementia. That is one book. And okay, so that is the title is Words for a Journey. So this is not about the journey as a travel or the going transportation. That is a metaphor of the living well with dementia. That is a metaphor, okay? So I want to happy to announce that our new book, new books was published in Chinese this week. So published from the Samlu in Hong Kong. So maybe I have no idea there is in the bookstore, but just published in Chinese. I want to know the publisher, and please find the book in the bookstores. Okay, so there is many people annoying with diagnosis of the dementia, because after the diagnosis of dementia, they are disappointed and discouraged to live for the rest of the life. So many people feel sad very well in Japan. But on the other hand, there is a people have a good life, better life with dementia, even with dementia. So what happened in that people? So if we can share how to live well with dementia with the people they feel very sad after the diagnosis, so they will be happy. That is our concept, okay? So for that purpose, we published a book of the Words for a Journey, like this. So this is a book, but this is a very special type of books that consists of 40 words. That is a vocabulary to improve your life with dementia. Okay, this is provided 40 words as a vocabulary to improve your life. Okay, in Japan there is a newspaper, many newspapers take an article like this. And also in the United Kingdom, in England, there is the newspaper take an article is in the English edition of this book. And in Japan, this book became gradually famous in the practical way, in the practical scene. Okay, so I want to show this what is this Words for a Journey today. Okay, so this is tips for improving the life with dementia for the people with dementia and families and everyone around them. Okay, so there is 40 words like this. I skip just an overview and introduce some of patterns, some of tips from this today. Okay. So there is 15 tips for the living well dementia. Okay, I give there is a flyer about this. The same contents is printed in the exit side. You can pick at later. Okay, so this is one tip about the self-intro album. This is a self-intro album offer the one tips to live well with dementia. For example, so there is a context. You recently have many opportunity to meet new people. In this context, you sometimes have trouble introducing yourself with words. Sometimes, as a symptom of the dementia, you forget something, that word related to you. After that, in this case, many people hesitate to meet new people. They don't want to face this kind of situation anymore. So that is a problem. So therefore, that's a solution. This is a tips for the keep a small item with you, such as an album, which you can use to show you are. That is including the photograph of your dog, or photograph in the gardening, or photograph about the hobbies or your families, like this. Just a simple tips help you to not to hesitate to meet new people. Okay, this is the tips. This kind of tips is included in the book, 40 tips in the book. Okay, so this tips is named as the self-intro album. This is the words as a vocabulary you can use in the communication or thinking in your daily life. This is the words, okay? Okay, so another one is daily chore. If you have something to do in every day, that help you to improve your quality of life. And can-do list. After the diagnosis of dementia, people easily to focus on the losing something of the ability. But on the other hand, they have, and you have many things to do still with dementia. So the focusing on what you can do it. That is one tips to have feel the more positive way of thinking. Okay, so for example, this is an actual case in the daycare center in Tokyo. So with using the words can-do list, the elder people make a list, like a list what they can do it. That is written in Japanese, but that including the taking care of cats and making the food for the cats, and the cats vegetables, cats food for the, and the washing the dishes like this. There is many things they can do. After that, writing what the can-do list, she became more positive thinking, and she was a very inactive people before this writing the list. But after that, in the day after this writing, she became the more active in the daily life. Like this, you can use these tips for improve the quality of life. So there was a comments from the people of the leader of the book, so that I was able to realize that I should select a practice, the one that I personally felt effective. That is important. You don't need to everything, just pick the sum of tips from the book, okay? For example, I'd like to use the number 8, self-reflecting room, and the number 13, self-intro album. Starting today, this is also gave me a chance to reconsider what kind of family relationship I want to have. This is including the tips for the making about the relation with the families. Okay. And the second category of the words is for caring families. The caring family easily to exhausted and too tired about the caring for the long time. So there is a tips to how to manage your connection and how to improve your knowledge and how to take care of yourself during the caring. That is a tips, many tips. Okay, for this is an example, the 3 consultant that to have a communication, to have a relationship with a medical doctor or nurse and professional caregivers and just your friends. That the 3 kind of consultant is important for to keep a good quality of life with caring with people with dementia. That is 3 consultant. Another one is chance to shine. Don't take everything from the people with dementia. That is, if you can share some kind of job in the house, it can be help to the people with dementia to feel the more active and do something in the home. That is improve their quality of life, the chance to shine. and preparation for the dream. This is amazing. I know that one of the amazing case. The one older man wanted to climb Mount Fuji after the diagnosis of the dementia. So the family, his wife, prepare to and communicate with the travel agency to how to realize this dream. So after that, they realized that climbing Mount Fuji, that maybe the 80 years old or 70 years old, I have no idea the age, but the older people can realize could realize the dream to climb Mount Fuji after diagnosis of dementia. That kind of preparation improves the quality of life. Okay, so this is a comment again, that especially with the caregiving, I feel that the friend, you feel empathy with you and the time from the caregiving that you can enjoy for yourself, the key points, the endurance. People often feel bad for caregiving family members to go out to enjoy, but I think I can use a pattern like the amusement committee, special day, and encouraging supporter effectively to make my life more and more fulfilled, like this. Okay? Another, the third, last category is for everyone, not about the family or not people with dementia, everybody in the local area, local community, and also the professionals in the society. Okay? So this is a tips named the job-specific contribution. If you are the store manager, so what kind of service you can provide to the people with dementia or families? Or if you are the taxi driver, or if you are a kind of publisher or IT engineer, what kind of contribution to make a dementia-friendly society? This kind of job-specific contribution is not discussed so far. So we need to discuss about the job-specific contribution in the company and in the society. This is the idea of the improve the quality of life in the society level. Okay, another one is the personal connections, and the many people doesn't know about the dementia or disease. Dementia as a disease. Many people think about, he is dementia, people with dementia, or she is have a dementia like this. That is a little. That is not good. That is including the prejudice about disease. But like your friend, in normal way, they are the person, they are the human. So that you can make a personal connection with them as one person like this. That is a very important point. So like this, we don't take care with the people with catching a cold and the people with a headache like this. That is just as the situation, the status, but we only focus on the friend of mine as a personal connection like this. This is a very important tips. Okay, another one is a mix-up event. This is this idea is mix the people of the people with dementia and people without dementia. That is a mix is important. So there is one very impressive case in Japan. This is Rantomoro. Tomo is meaning in the friend in Japan, and that is overlapping the meaning, the dual meaning. The Tomo is a friend, and the tomorrow is the tomorrow, yeah, Rantomo, yeah, like this. So this is a very amazing event that's involving the people to learn together, to run, and actually many people are walking, if they're the elder people, we don't care who is people with dementia or not. Just a mixed up event is giving the baton from the north of the Japan to the south of Japan. This is provided by the Dementia Friendly Club. That is one of the NPO. The many people participate in this event. This is an example, real example, the mix-up event in Japan. Okay, so this event is maybe there will be this event, same event in the Taiwan this year. I heard this year or next year. So this is a very amazing event, mix-up event. Okay, so there is another comment. By seeing the world dementia as not something that is dark, suffering, and going down into a deep ditch, but recapturing it with the words for a journey, the society as a whole, the local areas, people working for the welfare, the family, and the people with dementia themselves will be able to change how they see dementia. Okay, so you can use these words as a vocabulary for communication in the daily life. Like I should have put the picture on the way self-reflecting loom like this. It sounds good, right? You can use words as a vocabulary. And for this is a case of the Orange Cafe gathering. That is the dementia cafe gathering in Japan. They lead the words for a journey to closing the gathering, because that is a very positively written about how to improve the life. Okay, so there was a comments from that. The simple expression made it easy to understand, and with a cute illustration, the theme that could easily become very depressing was shown in the very positive way. That is a common, very popular feedback about these words. And there is a card edition in Japanese and English now, so that we can use a card for the workshop or dialogue or in various way of usage. So this is example in the hospital about dementia. Every day, doctor and the nurse pick some cards from the words for journey to display in the waiting room. So the doctor and nurse want to share the knowledge about how to keep or improve your quality of life. Okay, so the people with dementia, the family member and the caregiving employee all get confused on what to do next once they get a diagnosis with dementia. And there is another comment. I want to give it to everyone who received a dementia diagnosis along with their families. There are too many cases where people just have to go home after they disappear from their doctors like this. The early diagnosis easily make the early disappointment or depressing. That is the situation in Japan. So we want to change the situation. So the local government and the Kawasaki City in Japan incorporate the idea of the words for journey. They use the words and the illustration to the guidebook for the citizens in the local government. That is an example of the new example. And this is a case of the training course in the residence with a health and a welfare service for the elder people. This is a J exchange, the episode related to the words. So as a professional caregivers in the facility, so they can learn each other with using the word. The word has a concept of the tips, so that you can learn from many things from the description about the words, but you can learn from each other among the people to share the experience and the episode related to the words. That is important. We did not make a theory or something, the framework. This is the words, like a table and the chairs, sofa, like this. This is a vocabulary to describe our environment. Like this, we provide the words as a vocabulary to change the communication in the positive way to achieve the quality of life. Okay, so in some department of the nursing use this words for journey to share the image of how to support the people with dementia. And there is another case, the dialogue among the city officers and dementia supporters in the local areas. That is one of the idea to how to improve the system in the local areas like this. And also that we can exchange the idea and the episode experience with the people with using the in various domains from the people. And also we have using these words in the brainstorming session. If you have you want to make some new product or service to support the people with dementia or their families, that we can use these cards as a trigger to think about people with to the support. So this is a case in the conference, in the computer science conference, and another is a conference of the city making, city building and the architecture domain. So they think about the dementia-friendly society. Okay. So this is one example from the actual event is invented from this kind of idea generation based on the Was For journey. Okay, so the various settings we can use vocabulary like this. So this is a vocabulary to bridge the people who are standing in the various domain and the various position in the society. So these words have a complex network like this in the behind the book. There is, I didn't show this, the network in the book, but this is for the academic persons. This is connecting. So the words help to the collaboration beyond the status or position of the society or profession. That is a concept of the, so this is a, we interviewed with the people with dementia and the families. We mined, we collected the data, and we organized the idea to make this kind of vocabulary like this. So this is the What's For journey. There are the people are living well dementia. So we want to share the how to live well dementia, so many people can improve their quality of life by themselves with these practical knowledge words. Okay, so there is the flyer of this one in the exit of the this room. So please pick the handout later, and also please watch this Chinese translation just published this week. And also we have a booth for the about this Was For journey. There is a sample Chinese book and also the English sample of the English book, and there is a flyers. The booth is located in A11, A11. That is a very quiet area of the expo site. So please visit to be, I want to more crowded people in the discussion, exchange, experience about that. Okay, that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ibi. I understand that our next speaker will use her own computer, so you can come up and set it up. So while you're setting up the computer, I'm going to do a little bit of introduction about our next speaker, Professor Goldie Nejat. Robotics, that's her specialties. And our earlier speakers talking about working with patients, working with individuals at homes, and at the same time, how to support people with this dementia. And now our next topic is really about how robotics could be useful to support our aging population, particularly not just in healthcare, but also in our social well-being. Professor Nejat, a Canada Research Chair, and she also has a very strong experience in terms of integrating health, intelligence, engineering, and all sorts of sciences, which I personally don't know much about. But I'm very looking forward to her presentation. One of the things I know, she got lots of awards related to engineers. She was awarded the Engineers Canada Young Engineer Achievement Award in 2013. And in 2012, she was also got medals for Ontario Young Engineer medals as well. Those are exceptional achievements in the field of robotics. So I'll give the podium to Professor Nejat, and thank you very much for your sharing.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that kind introduction, and thank you for having me here today. It's been a pleasure to be a part of the Expo and Summit. Are you ready to talk about some robots? Great. So our work really focuses on bringing robots to society. And as this slide shows, the robots are coming. Actually, they're here, as you can see in the exhibit. And they're here to really improve our quality of life, promote independence, and our standard of care. The type of robotics that we've been working on has mainly focused on interactive robots. And what that means is we're designing socially assistive robots that provide both social and cognitive stimulation to older adults, including older adults that may be suffering from dementia. The idea is these robots will promote or maintain the cognitive ability of these individuals, as well as their overall global functioning, you know, the day-to-day activities that we would love to do as we grow older. In particular, we're looking at providing engagement in cognitively stimulating leisure activities such as memory games, as well as assistance with activities of daily living, which include, you know, brushing your teeth, getting dressed in the morning. As well, we would like to focus on social interaction and companionship to minimize social isolation of our older adults. And lastly, safeguarding and monitoring of the population and providing reminders such as, oh, that's interesting. Providing reminders for, sorry, just go back. There we go. For medication, for example. So I'll introduce you to our first robot. Actually, I'll let Brian introduce himself, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the studies we've been doing with Brian with older adults. So here's Brian.
Hi, my name is Brian. What is your name?
Hi, my name is Chore.
So Brian, as we said, is a socially assistive robot. He looks human-like, but he's not really a human. Just from the waist up, he has facial expressions and can display gestures, and as you could hear, speech as well. The idea with Brian was we wanted to focus on different activities that Brian could provide assistance with. So first, we looked at memory games. In particular, card games, which are very popular amongst the older population. And the card game of memory in particular, which is matching pictures on a card or pairs of cards. And what happens is initially the cards are flipped over, you flip two at a time over, and then you match them. And as you match them, you remove them from the game. If you match all the cards, you win the game. And the idea is we keep simple objects on the cards, and we let the older adults play the game with Brian. And the idea is we want about 15 to 20 minutes of stimulation with Brian. The advantage of this memory game is it helps with both the visual memory, because you have to remember the pictures on the cards, as well as the working memory, because you have to remember where the card you last saw is located. So once we design this activity for Brian to provide assistance with, it's important to note that Brian doesn't play the game. Brian is designed to encourage and prompt a person to play the game. We then took the robot to a local long-term care facility, and we put it on the first floor in this communication hub area where the residents would go and have coffee, play games amongst each other, and as they walked by, Brian would ask them if they wanted to play a memory game with it. And we did this for 2 days, and we just wanted to see who would interact with the robot and what they really thought about the robot. So we had about 40 older adults come interact with the robot, and some of them also completed an exit questionnaire for us. They range in cognitive ability from normal cognitive functioning to mild Alzheimer's disease. We wanted to look at a few things. Were they actually engaged in the activity with the robot? And this meant, did they look at the robot? Did they actually manipulate the cards or flip them over? And then compliance. So when Brian would, for example, instruct them to flip over the cards, would they do so? Would they listen to the robot? And we noticed some interesting trends. You can see a large majority of them were engaged almost all the time, as well as they complied with the robot. And of course, for 100% of them, this was the first time they've ever seen a robot and get up close to a robot, besides actually seeing robots in movies or on TV. I want to point out the 1 at the bottom for compliance none of the time. And this was an interesting scenario. Since we had Brian in a communication hub, we had speakers attached to the robot so people could hear the robot as they walked by. And for this participant, when he sat down, it was interfering with his hearing aid. But he sat there for 10 minutes with the robot trying to interact, but then unfortunately the interference was too hard for him. What that tells us is that, of course, with robotic technology, we really have to look around and see what other types of assistive technologies this population is using and make sure that the robot is well integrated with these assistive technologies so we can provide this level of care. From the exit questionnaire, we really wanted to know what were people's attitudes towards using the robot. Would they ever use it again? Did they think it was easy to use? And do they trust the robot? And so what we did was we had this scale from 1 to 5. 1 was strongly disagree and 5 was strongly agree. And we just asked them a series of questions that I just mentioned. So you can see from the mean here that the numbers are pretty high for attitude towards using the robot, intent to use it again, as well as perceived ease of use. What's interesting is trust. And if you notice, trust is neutral. And we looked at that and we thought, well, that makes sense. You don't trust a person the first time you meet them. Why would you trust a robot, right? Trust is usually earned over time. And so it'll be interesting to see, since we're running more long-term studies, to see how that number changes and if it increases. We then wanted to look at a few different things, for example, gender and computer experience. We had both populations interact with the robot, as well as people with completely different range of computer experience. And we want to see first the influence of gender on intent to use the robot, as well as perceived enjoyment when using the robot. And we found that there was no difference between the two. There had been some studies in Japan that had showed that there may be with that population. So we wanted to see, did that hold true for us as well? Then we wanted to look at computer experience and perceived ease of use. And we found that regardless of computer experience, both males and females found the robot easy to use. And this really focused back on the fact that the robot speaks and displays facial expressions and gestures, which are natural communication modes that people use. And so it's easier for people to interact with the robot because there's no learning curve needed. You interact with the robot just like you interact with another person. So then we moved on to an activity of daily living, and in particular, meal eating. So I spent a lot of time going to local long-term care facilities and seeing what happens at meal times. So what happens usually is, for example, at lunch, there's a 1-hour window for all the residents to eat. So they're brought into the dining hall, and then within that hour, then they have to be moved out. And it's very quick. And then you have individuals that, for example, need to be force-fed, so they're fed by the caregivers. Ones that may get distracted and not eat on their own, so they need prompting. And then, of course, there's individuals that can eat on their own. And we targeted that middle group, the group that needed prompting to focus on eating. And what we wanted to do was encourage them to eat. We could monitor their nutrition while doing so. And since meal eating is supposed to be a fun activity and a social activity, the robot would provide jokes and positive statements to keep them engaged in the activity. So what we did was we designed a special meal tray for Brian, shown here, that would measure how much food is left in a main dish, a side dish, as well as a beverage. We also designed a top that could be put onto any type of utensil that just had LEDs on it, so we could track it using the Wii remotes that are on the robot's shoulder. And that way we could track if the utensil is at the plate and if the resident was bringing it to their mouth. So in case they decided to do this, which sometimes they just put it in a napkin and they won't eat it, the robot could track that. As well, we're using a lot of off-the-shelf components because we want to keep the cost of these robots down. So Wii remotes, I'm sure a lot of you know about, and we also use the Nintendo Kinect sensor, which comes with the Xbox. We use the Kinect sensor to detect distraction. So if a person is engaged or if they're distracted based on their body language as well as their head orientation. So the robot could re-engage them in the activity. So I'll show you what Brian's behaviors are like, and then I'll show you how the residents during a study responded to the robot.
Hi, my name is Brian.
Hi, Brian.
You look very nice today. Please join me for lunch. Today's menu includes some pasta, apple slices, and water.
So this is just part of the social.
What a beautiful
moment.
day it is today. I'm glad I get to
You kind
spend
of see the
some of
robot
it with
smiling.
you.
I'm glad to spend it with you too.
And then a prompt to eat the food.
That's a good helping of food you have there. Please take a bite.
So the robot is detecting the food on the utensil. Okay, so now we did a study with older adults where we invited a cohort of older adults from 82 to 93 years old, and we asked them, would you like to have lunch with Brian on 2 separate occasions? And then we monitored how they interacted with the robot. And so this is, from the robot's point of view, how people were engaged in the activity.
Today's menu includes some beef
So that's the
stew,
same thing the robot
with a
just
side
saying the
of
menu
apple
from
sauce
before.
And a juice.
Yeah. Are you going to eat too?
So we noticed that people were really interacting with the robot and saying a lot of things
Main
to
dish
it.
smells amazing. Why don't you pick up some food with your spoon?
I will. It's very tasty, Brian.
So, and then again with the social comments.
I hope you are enjoying your meal.
I'm surely enjoying it. It's very good. I thank you. And I thank you for your company.
She was very polite to the robot. And then the robot, if it notices you haven't,
You should try some of
for
your
example,
beverage. It
drank
looks
your beverage or
refreshing.
eaten part of your meal, it can prompt you to do that.
Yes, I'm going to have some.
And I'll do one more. So when the interaction, for example, is done, the robot will have kind of an exit kind of
I
statement for the
really like
interaction.
your company. I hope we can do this more often.
I hope so. I hope I see you again. And you see, I never forgot your name. I remembered. And I was looking forward to meeting you again.
So she'd already had one meal with the robot, and she was excited to see and interact with the robot again. So this is interesting to note because there was no speech recognition on the robot. So we were actually developing the speech recognition as we were running this study. And so we told the older adults that the robot would speak to you and prompt you and provide these positive statements, but it's not necessarily going to respond back to what you said. And as you can see, they still talk to it, and they didn't care. And that was important for us to notice. So one of our measurements was we wanted to see how many times did they actually speak to the robot, and we had a huge variation of this. But what we really wanted to look at is, since we're looking at person-centered care and each individual is different, you can see the total interaction time varies between the participants. We have individuals that take about 10 minutes to eat their meal, and then all the way almost to an hour. And we noticed, of course, they were engaged in the activity, and the majority of the time they were engaged in looking towards the robot as well as the meal that they were eating. And you know, 69% of the time of that overall engagement, they were eating the meal as well. And then the total utterances, so you can see it ranges from 86 utterances to the robot all the way down to, let's say, 20 for the shorter time frames. Then we want to look at, did they actually listen to the robot when it was prompting them? And again, we noticed high compliance rates. The one I want to point out is participant 2. If you notice, participant 2 had 67%. It was an interesting story because she had eggs for lunch, and she hated eggs. So when the robot would prompt her to eat the eggs, she would eat the applesauce that was in her side dish. And her caregiver after told us that usually when she gets that same meal, she won't eat anything. But she wanted to listen to the robot and wanted to, you know, interact with the robot, so she would eat something at least off of her dish. So when we looked at meal eating was an important one, we wanted to extend it a little bit further. And we thought, well, you eat the meal, but before the meal, for individuals that are still at home and can prepare meals, why don't we look at meal preparation? What happens is sometimes socially isolated older adults are not motivated to prepare meals for themselves, and so they won't do it. And so could we have a robot, for example, our Casper robot here, help with kitchen activities? Remembering meal times, taking the individual to the kitchen, finding a recipe to make, and then making the food step by step. So I'll show a quick video of Casper. And Casper, again, displays facial expressions. It's a 3D printed robot that we developed with one of our industrial collaborators. And so the difference here is that we're using LEDs to display the facial expressions. And then we have a tablet display where we could display the menu or recipes. So let me just fast forward a bit. So Casper can go in the environment and look for the individual.
Are you here?
So here, Casper's looking for Derek. And
Okay, Casper.
once Casper finds Derek, Casper will escort Derek to the kitchen so they can prepare a meal together. And then
You are going to need 3 ingredients.
we developed a special app so that, for example, Derek wants to make a tuna sandwich. He can pick the recipe, and then Casper can help Derek find where all the items are.
If you can't find the bread, I
So in
would
this
be
case,
happy to show
if Derek
you where
couldn't
it
find
is.
where the items there are, he can press the question mark on the tablet, and Casper can help to find those
Please check
items.
it there.
Lucky for Derek, everything's in one cupboard,
What's
so he
the
can
bread?
get all the ingredients. And then for the step-by-step, Casper can show videos of each of the steps. You can skip the videos if you know what to do, but if not, you can use these demonstration videos to help. And we're currently running, as I speak, user studies with residents at a retirement home in the Toronto area to see how they will interact with Casper. So I'll talk about one more robot before my time runs out. So we talked a lot about one-on-one interactions. We wanted to also look at group-based interactions or interactions where you can use robots to connect to other people. And this is where we designed our Tangi robot here. And 2 of the activities we were looking at for Tangi was telepresence, so using Tangi to connect with family members and friends, or as well as doctors and nurses, using the robot to minimize social isolation as well. And we targeted the group of older adults that may not know how to use Skype or a tablet, because a tablet is a passive device. You have to go turn it on, open the software, remember to actually charge it. But in a robot's case, what we could do is have family members go online and book a time or schedule a time that they wanted to interact with the residents, in this case at a long-term care facility, and then the robot would go find them, similar to how Casper found Derek, and then let them know that their family member wanted to initiate an interaction. And all they have to do is just press a button, and then their family member would appear, and they could do the interaction, and then once that's done, the robot goes away and can help another person, right? So we're designing this robot that it can help about 30 different residents in one long-term care facility. Then we wanted to look at groups of individuals. So we decided to think of what group-based activities that are played in long-term care facilities. And one popular one was bingo. And so we decided to design Tangi to facilitate bingo games. And for those of you who are not familiar with bingo, you get a bingo card with numbers on it, and the robot will call out the numbers and display it also on its tablet, and you just mark the numbers. If you get a line, you win bingo. And again, this activity is socially stimulating. It helps to improve memory, as well as recognition and recall, because you have to remember the numbers, and motor skills. And it's a social activity, not only with the robot, but with other residents that are playing the game. We made it a little bit more interesting. We didn't want to design the robot the way we thought bingo should be played. We wanted caregivers at the long-term care facility to design the bingo scenario themselves so that they can cater it to the individuals that are living there. And each different care facility can play bingo differently. So I'll just show you a quick video of teaching Tangi some of the functionality. So there's 2 things. There's the gestures, as well as the speech of the robot.
Gesture recording has started.
So this is
Please move
Tangi
slowly so I
learning
can
from a
follow the
caregiver
movements.
how to wave. So the hand going up and down. And then the same caregiver can use an interface that we've designed and type in what they would want Tangi to say for this greeting, for example. And so they type it in right here on the screen, and then the robot
Hello,
will say
everyone. Who feels lucky today? Does everyone have a card?
And this can go on for
Hi,
example,
20.
calling out bingo numbers. So we had a lot of different scenarios, providing help by calling Tangi over to look at a resident's card. So, for example, Tangi could look at a card and see if there was missing numbers or incorrectly marked numbers, and then provide that assistance. And so here's a caregiver designing Tangi to do that. And here comes the robot. And then, maybe more importantly, when a person wins, the robot learning how to do a celebration dance. And so here's the dance being taught to the robot. And I'll show you a quick video of actually how the robot now takes all this and facilitates its own bingo game autonomously from what it learned from the caregivers. So here's the bingo scenario with 4 older adults at a long-term care facility.
Tangi.
So you can see the wave that it learned. It
I am
introduces
so
itself.
excited to play bingo with you today.
And then I'll show you the bingo calling out the numbers that was taught to the robot. So again, the robot displays the number on its screen
69.
and then points to the screen.
Where do snowmen?
And then you can call the robot over.
G,
So
52.
the residents have a green button that they can press to call the
Please
robot
give me
over.
a second to help someone.
And the robot, so whoever presses first, the robot will go towards, and then the next person will be in a queue. So the robot goes over to look at this gentleman's card, for example, and then it can provide assistance when it looks at your card. So here it is providing assistance. So it looks at the card, sees what numbers are missing, and then we'll tell the individual.
You have some misplaced markers.
It will say it and then again
Please remove
display
these
it
markers from
on
the
its
following
chest.
numbers on your card.
And then, if you have a winning bingo card, here it is learning the celebration dance.
Congratulations, you have
Still
won
learning to
bingo.
have some rhythm, but
Oh, big work that time.
and then you can hear some of the residents they're getting happy that the robot is dancing. So I just want to stop there. So the idea here is to design these robots that can help the caregivers as well to provide assistance with some of the activities of really focusing on cognitive and social stimulation. So I have to thank the groups of postdoctoral fellows and students that have been working on, and of course a lot of our funding, which includes AGE-WELL, that has been funding us to develop some of these robots. Thank you, I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Professor Nejat. Thanks for your interesting sharing. I'm sure many people are interested in looking at those robots in a more close, up and close and personal, and try out some new things. Let me continue to introduce the next speaker, Mr. Peter Poon. Mr. Poon, as I mentioned earlier, is with the Hong Kong Society for Rehabilitation. He is also an adjunct associate professor of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University Rehabilitation Sciences Department. His expertise is related to chronic care management and health management, and I'm sure he's going to have a lot of interesting new ideas around how technology can be integrated in terms of promoting health and managing chronic illnesses among patients and family members. I'll give the podium to Mr. Poon.
Thank you. I see most of us are Chinese, so perhaps I say 大家好. So good afternoon. So let me have these sections, and what I would like to share with you today is about a platform that we have developed over the past few years is actually the platform that we hope can help people to self-manage. We actually spent about 2 years to build this platform. And it was launched about 1 or 1.5 years ago. So it's a great platform. And I know tomorrow, do you know what's tomorrow? Father's Day, right? So I think one of the things we can do for our mom and dad could be to go up to this platform in case they have some health conditions like diabetes or hypertension. It will be a great time to learn together with them to make use of this platform. So about E2Care, let me introduce my organization. I'm actually coming from the Hong Kong Society for Rehabilitations. In Chinese, 香港復康會. So this picture here is my team. I think we have the most energetic team, okay? So we all work together and work for one single reason. So the mission of the organization is very much on helping people to help themselves, and then for them to help the others. So it's a very, very simple mission, and I think it's actually the mission of most of the social organizations here in Hong Kong as well. So what we do in Hong Kong is we provide lots of programs, mainly the center-based programs, face-to-face. People come to the center to receive their clinical service or to receive their patient education, to learn how to self-manage their disease, as well as we have other vocational training and other supporting service. We're also the provider of rehab bus in Hong Kong. So talking about accessible transportation is also our core business. We're also a collaboration center of the WHO. So up to now, we have trained about 30,000 rehab personnel in mainland China. So our job is not only limited to Hong Kong, but it's also part of the mainland service provider as well. Because we are the Hong Kong Society for Rehabilitations, and naturally, rehabilitation is our core business. I'd like to quote these definitions here. Rehabilitation is actually a process to enable people, okay, to help them. And the ultimate goal is to attain independency and self-determinations. And I'm also a big fan of self-management. What is self-management? Self-management is to acknowledge that I am responsible. Even though I have chronic disease, even though I have disability, ultimately it's myself who is responsible for my health. So what we have been trying to do in my organization is to provide different type of support to help people to self-manage their own conditions. And I'm going to skip this. And we have been around for almost 60 years now. And the services that we have started in 1994 is called the Community Rehabilitation Network. And the core business for this service is to help people with chronic disease and other type of disability to self-help and self-manage their own conditions. Why we go into E2Care? I think nowadays everybody, we have our mobile phone. And then we have our computer. I'm in a family of 4, and I have just counted today. We have 7 computers at home, okay? And I couldn't count how many mobile phones we have because every year somebody actually changed a phone. And we have so many mobile phones at home now. So we are all into this internet world. So the change in the service need, the behavioral change has given us a big problem. So how should we provide this service? So we are going through a transformation stage to transform from the center-based service to a new way of providing service using we don't have robot yet. So we are using the e-platform, using the mobile phone, okay, using the new technology and to really go together with the existing service, and hopefully that can help to address the changing needs of the society. So I think I just explained this. Everybody have their mobile phone. Everybody are using internet. When we go to a hotel, the first thing we are looking for will be Wi-Fi. Okay, not even go to the bathroom, but to look for the Wi-Fi. So that tells why we need to change. So for that very reason, we established the E2 Care platform. And I mentioned that it's actually a transformation process that we hope by using this type of new technology, we can provide better service and cater for the future needs. Who do we serve? So we are mainly using this platform to serve people with chronic illness, such as diabetes, hypertension, weight problem, as well as stroke and other health conditions. And the target group of this platform will be middle-aged, the busy adult. They probably will be still working and have constraints to attend the center-based service. Just now I already showed the platform. So basically we are using the computer. We are using the mobile device. Either it's their mobile phone or their iPad or the other mobile devices to really link up to the portal, to the e-platform, to make use of the different good informations or tips in this platform. So if you log into E2 Care, which is www.e2care.org, you will be able to see, or .hk, you'll be able to see more details. What's available in this platform is quite a rich platform. So we have the patient management system, which is about, there are different modules if you are interested. And I'm more interested in the learning management system. In total, we have 9 online health courseware, which means it's actually a very structured program. People with diabetes, with hypertension, they can log into these programs and have a very comprehensive coverage on the pathologies, on some of the healthcare tips, and even with some self-management tools that help them to self-manage their diseases. Apart from the online platform, we also have different applications. There are in total 10 applications. So for those that are interested, I'm strongly recommend you to visit all these applications. Okay. I have mentioned about this speech program. So we actually have developed this program which will cater for clinical assessment, exercise prescription, and even people can actually have their performance record in the system, which I've already showed this video, so I'm going to skip this. Up till now, we have launched this program for quite a while. We have received some very positive feedback. The gentleman that I showed in this photograph, he's actually a TV host. So he used to work in the TV station. So he has lost his speech because of the stroke episode. So he's actively participating in our program and has very good recovery. Talking about the service beneficiaries, since we launched these programs, we have about 27,000 users of this platform. Not a great deal. We hope to have more. So I will be very grateful if you can log into this platform and to register to be a user. And we have counted how many users that have been using this platform. Again, it shows that we need more promotions. There are lots of constraints in developing this program. And I must say, as an NGO, we are not very much technology driven. So we need to spend more time to learn how to make use of this platform. And so far, all the data is output data. We'd like to look into evaluations and to find out whether this platform actually helps to produce good outcome. So the challenges is to show the result and the good outcomes. So what's next? I hope we'll move towards the E3 care very soon, because we are still a baby in a learning period. So hopefully later on we know how to use this platform better and how to help people to self-manage their conditions better. With that, may I say thank you.
So I think this, for me, I think this is really an eye-opener, because thank you very much again for all your sharing, and all the presentations consist of lots of information, as well as there's a touching part that I find it very moving. It's about the effort that you all use to try to get to helping people. Maybe the ways are diverse. Some may focus on interactions with individuals. Some may focus on how the system would better help patients or clients. Maybe I will start from a more personal level types of question. What are the motivations? What makes you, as a scientist or as a service provider or as someone who are interested in this area, have this idea of bringing in technology into working for people or helping people? Scientists or service providers or anyone? We got a microphone at the front. Yeah. What makes you to start that types of work from the beginning?
That's a very great, it's a great question. I think from my point of view, I think the main idea is that we want to develop technologies that impact society and help society. And so we look at ways that, in particular in robotics, how can we design these robots to improve quality of life of individuals. In particular, we look at, over the lifespan, but as our older adults are, living longer, how can we care for them and promote independence and living at home where they would love to age, and using robots to provide that kind of assistance to do so. So really the societal impacts of developing technology.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
I'm studying the sociology in the one part. So the one of the German sociologists, Niklas Luhmann, said the element of the society is communication. The society is a nexus and a chain of communication. So he said, if we need to change the society, we need to change the mode of the communication. That's why I'm making the media for changing the communication style. So we provided the words can be used in the communication. That is my motivation, basically. So I'm not only communication media in the about the dementia, but after providing this book, so the many people come to me to what kind of create new words, vocabulary for the disability, disabled people, or with living well with the cancer, or a kind of difficulty of the development. And many people come to me to make a new vocabulary to improve the quality of life. So I'm studying the methodology, how to create it, and from scratch to the interview, and to make this kind of new vocabulary. And also we provide the methodology and the process how to create it. So that we are now sharing our knowledge to create this kind of vocabulary from the interview to describe the experience of how to improve the quality of life. So yeah, I'm keeping this kind of activity in the future.
Okay. How about Dr. Bo and Mr. Poon? Any comments?
I'm a specialist in elderly medicine. In a sense, I treat elderly people. So we know how to treat them well. But now, when you have many, many such patients in front of you, you know that the existing practice or the resources available is not good enough. They can't be enough, actually, because the number is escalating. So we need to think about better ways to serve these patients who are really in need, right? And then going to the community, carrying them there, collaboration with other colleagues, non-health sector colleagues, is probably the only way to go. And then when I become an older person, become a patient, then I hope that I can receive care with a standard, in a sense, not a substandard care. So I think that is the urge for us to go forward.
Thank you.
I think for me it's actually very similar. I think being a service provider, we see the service gap and service needs. And realizing that we actually want to do something more. And by building up new platform and see if we can provide a better solution to cater for their needs.
Thank you very much. But let me put it this way. Some people may argue that, well, when services are not adequate, is technology the solution? And what are the considerations you have in mind when you're trying to balance out needs of individuals and the extent that technology could really bring well-being to people without making them feel further isolated or further marginalized because someone may not be able to catch up with the technological world development?
I think it's actually a very difficult question. Technology, say for example at home, I told you that we have mobile phone. So as a father, I think naturally we will WhatsApp each other using the mobile phone. And then I think technology still couldn't replace human touch. Okay. So as a father, I still treasure the family time with the family. And put that into the context of service. I think technology will be good. I think robot will be good. But I guess we still need the human touch. So I would see technology will be an enabler rather than to replace the human services.
How about other speakers?
Yes, following the same, actually, it's an enabler, or I would say it's a facilitator. And actually, the solution is not the solution. The solution rests on human hands because we are dealing with people. So people need the care by people, actually. But we need the technology or technological developments, the IT and all these things, the connection to the specialists and all this to help the caregivers so that they can give the necessary support. And I remember the speech given by some of the speakers early, maybe this morning or yesterday, right? The important thing is we don't create a cold and lonely world just facing the robot. Although the robot is important, it's important, but it's only part of the scenario. You still need to, through this robotic, through this IT, you get connection to people, to your sons, your children, your other generation or other caregivers. And I think that's the main point. And then I remember this morning, one of the professors said that it's not the technological development that is important. It's the design, the human design that shows the human need that is important. And I fully agree with that. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I agree that the technology is enabler and also the communication and interaction is important. So I'm providing the language, vocabulary as I presented, but my background as a science of complexity. So the science of the complex system with using the computer simulation to understand the society. That is my background. And I did the programming for past 30 years in my life, but I choose a language as a media for the helping the people now. That is a very interesting point. So that I do using the computer and I do using the computer with my research, but as a media I provide is choosing the language. So the interface is important for the human to help the communication in the daily life. The recent, still now, the robot and the computer or technology looks like a really artificial still now, but that will be changed in the future. More, my keyword is naturality, being natural. That maybe in the future, that is a kind of prototype and the frontier, the robot and looks like a very artificial, but that will be changed as an interface, more natural or more humanistic. So the point essence of the technology is helping the communication, to enable the communication of thinking or doing something like that. That is the essence. The interface can be changed in the future. That is my opinion.
All right. Goldie, you got any comments?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I agree with everybody, what they've mentioned. We're developing technology to help people, and that's the idea. It's not to replace people, but we're looking at it from both sides. So we need robots, for example, to assist people, but we want to assist both, the older adults as well as the caregivers. So if we look at caregivers, there's the burden of care that they have and the stress and fatigue of caring for one individual, whether it's informal or formal caregivers caring for multiple individuals, up to 30 people. So where can we design the technology to meet these needs of both sides, right, and the wants? And so you can use the robots, for example, to connect people. So you still have people in the loop, right, where you're connecting robots, older adults to their family members, their healthcare professionals, so that they still get quality of care, as well as amongst each other. So one of the issues that we were noticing when we were visiting long-term care facilities is stimulation. Because the caregivers are so busy with the really important task of, medication giving and ensuring the overall health, some of those stimulating activities that maybe, that we take for granted, like games and exercise, they come down lower on the priority list. And you could use a robot to do them. The great thing about a robot is it can do the same thing over and over again, and it can do it with a smile. And so you can have those repetitive activities done by a robot, and then the high-level interaction and care given by the caregiver.
I want to echo one point is because I know of some stroke patients, and in the old days when speech therapists were sent to home, there's also one factor that we very seldom thought of is we thought that patients must want their treatment to be done. But at the same time, the sense of pride and the shamefulness itself also create an environment that making a lot of older people in the community, after a couple trials, and they discover that they don't have much improvement, then they will give it up. But I noticed that, say, technology like that would also gear towards, in addition to stimulation, is about they could have a very private environment that they could use the technology to practice. Failing doesn't hurt their feelings, because failing themselves would be able to allow them the opportunity to use the technology to practice it more often. And I think this is a very clever way of looking at how human touch could be incorporated, and both intentionally and sometimes I would say unintentionally as well. My next question is more broader, because challenges. I mean, what do you see as the challenge when society, say in the whole schema of our main conference is on population aging? And do you think the speed of population aging in terms of the approach that we have been using to grow and develop technology to provide and to face with the changes, do you think it's fast enough for us? Or what are the challenges that you foresee in your work of the technological development that you want to put up to support the society? And what are the difficulties that you think you will, or we all will face with in this context of using technology in an aging society?
I think it's actually the very challenging situations. Say, take for example, the E2 Care project that I just mentioned. We have this big grant from the Hong Kong Jockey Club about 3 years ago. Okay, so it took us 1 year to write the proposal, and then take us another year to develop the software and the platform. But as soon as we develop that, things are already outdated. Okay, because 2-3 years time, they change the software, the language. So it's really hard to catch up, okay? So I think we're actually facing a big gap to have this idea and to really put this idea into action, but it's already outdated. So bear in mind, we have spent lots of resources to invest on this new technology, but all of a sudden, it gets outdated. Not only that, after you run that for 1 or 2 years, even the software, they will not be supported. So I don't know. And the cycle seems to be getting shorter and shorter. So being an NGO, as I mentioned again, we are very limited in resources. So feel like to me that we are chasing the wind. So we are not going to win in that sense. Right. So that will be the challenge we are facing.
Actually, to me, the challenge is an opportunity, because I'm still talking about the medical-social collaboration. Right? Now, I just talked to one of the social welfare colleagues yesterday, actually. I talked to him yesterday. And he said that actually we are different breed of people, because now doctors, nurses come from the science stream, right? Social workers come from the art stream. So they're separated already in the secondary school. So they come from different background. Therefore, they don't interact in that sense, although we say that we serve the same type of patients. Now, it is exactly because of this challenge that we are forced to work together. Because for an elderly patient, the social issues and the health issues are intermingled together. We can't solve it one by one. We must solve it together. And that is exactly the opportunity that forces us to work together, develop services together. And to me, the technological hurdle is a hurdle, but the more important hurdle is between people. There are various boundaries between different fields, different departments, different organizations, and even in the professions. Yeah. And we need to break that boundary, and it's not easy. It's very difficult. Now, for medical people, we already learned that we need to understand the social background. Now we need to ask our social workers to know something about healthcare. And they know that actually. Take for example, in our old age homes, actually our social worker colleagues, they already know how to handle ill patients, right? So it's not impossible, but we need a quicker pace. The pace must match with the expansion of the elderly population. And then somehow I think we are forced to do so. And I hope that we will be successful anyway.
I want to make a remark about that. It's many, many years ago, a friend of mine who was in another discipline while I was in social work. And he mentioned one point is when we try to build a better society, the ideal type of society is in which we don't need social workers anymore. So hopefully that would be achieved in one day, because not that to have technology to replace social work, but what I'm talking about is if there are ways that people can help themselves in a way that they could capitalize on the technology and resources, or even the human touch that they can have, then the need for so-called social workers may not necessarily be as big as today, which is leading to an ideal, more ideal scenario. Similar to the need for doctors. If we have fewer diseases, then
healthy society won't need many doctors. Okay.
Right. Yeah. How about the other speakers?
Yeah, I think the combination of the computer or technology and the human resource, and also the kind of power with the community can solve the problem. So that we need to how to combine these powers. But the situation for the elderly people's society is a good opportunity for the company to invest the resource to that's problem, because many people are interested in and worry about the situation in the future. So nobody deny that's the investment to the developing the new technology for that. So that the Japanese company are starting to invest or develop the technology for the elderly people's aged society. So that is can be a opportunity. So that also the global collaboration or exchange of knowledge like this summit is very important, because many countries will face the aged society. So that is we need to exchange the knowledge and the collaboration to develop the new technology and the methodology. So that is a solution.
All right. Challenges?
So I mean, there's many, especially with designing robots, because we're looking at a whole new area and application where traditionally we've been looking at robots in manufacturing that are separated from people in a work cell, and we didn't have to worry about anything, and they were pre-programmed to do a very specific task very accurately. But now we want to bring them into people's homes, with multiple people interacting and all these different relationships that may exist. So I think it's a great time to have these challenges because now we get to pave the way. We get to look into the future and see what do we want to do with this technology. And this is what's happening globally. We're designing these strategic plans of, if we're developing assistive technologies, including assistive robots, where do we want to target these robots to impact, both economically as well as socially, as well as for our healthcare. So it's kind of the exciting part of that. So it really opens up this great interdisciplinary exchange as well, because engineers used to work on their own, and healthcare medical professionals used to work on their own, and we didn't really exchange a lot. But now it brings the community together, and so we exchange ideas, we understand the needs, and then we design for those needs and wants.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let me open it up to the floor. Any questions from the audience that you want to raise? We got some helper down there who can pass you the mic. Thank you.
Hi, this is Edmund from Hong Kong Design Center. I think we literally, this week is very interesting. We just finished a week of knowledge of design, on inclusive design, right? Now, assume for one moment that we are placing the citizen needs and well-being at the center. Okay, because the whole service should be developed around that. And the use of technology is to enable that service deliver. And Peter talked about the need for new service models or things to make it things. And Dr. Mok, you talk about the collaborative mindset. What do you see as I try to get to the most difficult part or the challenging part. Is it the lack of mindset that is kind of hindering our developments of something moving to a new service model? Because we keep talking about technology, robots, I'm sure that there are many exciting developments, but we can talk about VR, we can talk a lot of empowerment, but end of the day is understanding humans and so what kind of service mindset are we talking about?
Maybe I answer first. I mean, in the beginning, I said that this 2 days experience is a mind-opening exercise for me. So yes, true. I think the most important hurdle for me, or as I see it for the medical field, is the mindset. We are still in the traditional medical model, using that to treat our patients individually. But as a population or as a service development, then we need to be more open-minded in a sense. But we are not trained to do so, you see. We don't have this in our teaching curriculum, at least in my days. So, but for policymakers, for those planning for healthcare service, they need to have this mindset. And I understand that some of our senior colleagues are already going this direction, but it takes time. And it takes real successful examples to make us believe that all this can work. And then we can convince the government, the funding resources, that can put this into a service model and service provision. And then it takes time. But I think we are going towards that direction. But then changing people is still the first step, and the most difficult step to me. Yeah.
Any other speaker want to respond to the comment? No? Mr. Poon?
I think mindset is one. Probably our personal experience will be the second. So being an administrator, I must say I've been going to different places, like going to Singapore. But I still find myself quite narrow in terms of my mindset as well as my experience in information and technology. So I think having this great conference is actually, as the other speaker says, is eye-opening. And then if that goes to the administrator, to the policy maker, and mind you, most of them could be on their 40s, 50s. So they're not those new guys that embrace all the technology, familiar with using the iPhone, using the social media. So I guess with the CE election, we all know that even with Facebook. So it's not everybody familiar with Facebook. So I think it's our personal experience that are limiting. And when we develop the program, and the vendor often comes to us and asks for the requirement, okay? We spend months and months and months trying to tell the vendor or the developer what our requirements are. But honestly speaking, sometimes we even don't know what I want, okay? And then how on earth they can build a program that really suits me, because I couldn't actually verbalize what my requirements are. So I think for my own feeling, I think it's the experience that is also limiting.
Thank you. Well, I saw someone having a mic already.
My name is Roy Lee, and I belong to a group called Angel West. We invest in technology. I travel around the world in US, Israeli. I see a lot of technology. Israeli is top technology. My question is, I don't think it's a problem with technology, the problem is accessibility. Accessibility in two issues. One is older people, as a consumer group, the rich people don't need your help. They can pay their money. It's the poor people who need it. So one is cost. Second one is branding. Like, you don't care if it's a great program. Then why doesn't the government, the health department promote your product? Because to me, there's two big costs to accessibility. One is knowing your product, which is a big marketing cost. And then the other one is cost issues. So I like your experience in that sector. It's not really technology. It's getting technology to the people who need it at a reasonable cost or subsidized by the government so people can afford it. So that's my question.
Anyone want to give it a try? Yeah.
So yeah, just to repeat your question, just to make sure, how do you, worry about the cost, to minimize cost, as well as accessibility to all groups, right? That's what you're focusing on. Yeah, this is it's a nice relationship that we have to develop with governments. And depending on, of course, where you are in the world, you were mentioning visiting the US where healthcare is private, so you're working with insurance companies to make it accessible. But, and so that's where issues where, some people, if they have money, can have more access. But I think in other places where there are, more universal healthcare systems, a lot of it has to do with outreach. And technology is getting cheaper. We're looking at computers and cell phones and how much cheaper they are, and it happens with mass production that we can develop them a lot cheaper. When I started in robotics, not to age myself, but over let's say close to 2 decades ago, my robots, I couldn't buy a robot. A robot would cost me $1 million back then. But now we made our Brian robot for less than $2,000. Casper is going to be sold for less than $1,000. So as we go through, right, because of these technologies that we're developing, we're bringing the cost down. And mass production will, of course, really help with that. So that helps with the cost. And then the outreach to government is really important. So if we, as developers, don't do our job with outreach, then nobody will never know about the technology, then the access is gone, and the policy makers that can help ensure that, we have subsidized, usage for this technology and allow it to get to all the groups that need it, it wouldn't be there. So I think it's a two-part. I shouldn't only just develop the technology, but I should also make sure that it gets in the right hands. And I think that that's important.
Sorry, we can't hear you from here, but maybe, yeah.
As a follow-up question, see you're from Australia. So how does Australia government does it differently that Hong Kong can be learned from as far as reaching to the government policy?
So me?
I'm sorry, I'm from
Canada.
Yeah. Canada. I'm sorry,
from
Canada.
Yeah.
How does Canada do it differently that maybe Hong Kong can learn from Canada policy?
So I think Canada, what we're trying to do is, we actually are going through this process right now of looking at what innovations and technologies that we should invest in. So in the future, and a lot of it has to do with projecting where are the largest costs, right? And so our elderly population, in the next few decades, will reach over 22% to 25%. And so we're looking and targeting that, right? And they require the most, of course, resources, unfortunately, as you age. And so we're forecasting, okay, where is it that we need the biggest need and which population needs it? And then what is the available technologies that we can develop and use to do that? So, for example, Health Canada just went through, so Health Canada is what allows us approvals for a lot of these technologies that we develop to be used for clinical practice, for example. And so we really, just as a whole country with Health Canada, our Senate and Parliament, we just went through this exercise of looking inwards to robotics and AI and how we can use those types of technologies and even bring them together to develop and invest in them. So invest in startups, invest in already existing companies that are developing this technology, and not only locally, for Canadians, but on a global scale as well. And so that's what we've been doing, and I think that has to do with the outreach, right? So there's scientists, policymakers, healthcare professionals all coming to the table to discuss how do we move forward. So hopefully that answers your question.
Well, maybe we'll let the next person to ask the question. She had her hand up very long time ago.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the enlightening sharing from different countries. Actually, before I got this mic, I would like to ask a question from Dr. Mok. My previous question is, he talked about re-engineering of, say, social worker and also clinical leaders in both the health and social care setting. But I think you have a lot of elaboration later. But I would like to give some feedback on this point because I'm a social worker by background. I have working with Tuen Hospital for many years before, and I trust that medical and social care collaboration is very important, especially to address the aging population in Hong Kong. But actually, I think I'm quite optimistic because I trust doctors have very good clinical experience. And what I think is the barrier, I think the critical successful factor is the technology. Because I trust doctors have clinical experience while social workers have experience to collaborate. But we are inadequate on the technology. So if investors, if developers, or say if the government provide sufficient infrastructure, technology support, I think we only need the people to work together in a more simple way. But nowadays, or say right now, we don't, as Peter mentioned about that, we don't know much about technology, and we are catching about that. So I think I have stayed here for 2 days for this conference. I think it's very good, especially I heard quite key message from the government that they are willing to have more investment, and so many people are willing to have more support. So I think what we need maybe have more communication, maybe some more pilot project or some research on how we can address the needs, or say how to design according to the person's need or say patient's need, so that we have more concrete surface or collaboration or say product to our people. That's what I want to feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I think our time is almost up. I do want to bring up one more comment, which is the closing comment that you may have is, how about our next generations of professions? I mean, of professionals. Some of the speakers mentioned about in the past that we learned in a separate silos, right? Although I do want to proudly say that my new program on applied aging studies do work together with designers in a course together and do work with rehabilitation science people together. But at the same time, how would you envision the futures of training would look like when the society is any healthcare professionals, it's not just about providing healthcare anymore. How would you envision that?
To me, I just think because I'm not in the education field, but I think education for future generation will be more integrative. It should be more integrative, at least at the background. And of course, it can be very specific in those type of engineering, even medicine, it can be very specific. But as a general background, it should be integrative. So science, arts should be together, actually. And I think we are going along that way. I need to ask those who are in the education field about that. But I hope that it is going along that way.
Right. Okay. Other comments?
Well, I have been observing my son. He just went into uni, into the rehabilitation science in PolyU. So I have been observing, I think he's quite different, the way he learned. Like in the past, when we study anatomy, we have this big book, the Gray's Anatomy. But now they don't use that. They're using the computer and to look at different wonderful model, looking different muscles. So I think it all comes natural to them. Using the e-platform, looking at data, using different type of technology. And recently he went to Taiwan to look at some of the latest technology as well. So I think the new generation would be very different, okay? So technology is not a different language. It's part of the language to them.
All right.
So I foresee that with that new group of professionals comes out, things could be very different.
Thank you. Any last words?
Yeah, I think the interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary education is very important because, for example, I graduated from the interdisciplinary department in the Keio University. That is I'm teaching now. So I'm not standing in the specific discipline that I learned economics and computer science and the science of the complexity, many things in sociology like this. So I can study the new kind of development like I presented today. So in the professional for the medical or in the welfare domain is a very, there are many things to learn, but there is a kind of more good technology and good method to share the experience and the specific knowledge recently. So that maybe the more interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary education for the medical and the welfare student is become more important, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I just, when I was walking through the exhibition yesterday, I noticed all the small children, right? And I thought, what a great opportunity, right? They have to be here. And so now I look and I think there's these innovators everywhere, right? At corners, these children that are starting at a very young age to learn a lot of things. Everything's at their fingertips, right? So all these opportunities that they have, you know, from designing technology, being exposed to technology, being exposed to applications through, you know, conferences like this and access to technology. For example, you know, in robotics, there's little leagues of middle school children that are building robots and so on. So we have this huge new generation of innovators. And I think that that's exciting because they're learning young. And so, which gives them the opportunity to start thinking about, you know, what the future is going to hold and how they can contribute to the future. And they're doing it with, I would say, without any borders. So those traditional borders of disciplines are kind of gone now, right? And everything's very interdisciplinary. So I mean, robotics is engineering, of course, computer science. If you apply it to people, psychology, cognitive sciences as well, of course, health, occupational therapy, surgeons and doctors. So, you know, they're getting this whole experience together, and I think that that's fantastic. Yeah.
Great. I think for me, I think the closing for me is, in future, we need a group of professionals who are caring and well-informed, but also have a creative mindset from the perspectives of the clients and patients, so that we are able to be better to face the challenges when the needs are getting more and more diverse. Well, I think this concludes our plenary tonight, this afternoon. Thank you very much, and once again, thanks to all the speakers and all the participants. Let's give them a big hand of round. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you all enjoy the conference. Continue to check out the booths and come back for more sessions afterwards, or maybe tomorrow or later. Thank you.